This meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the City of Shelton Commission. So, first item on our business is we're going to have, it looks like, a report from Mr. Steve Goines about our SPATU group. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a periodic update on the Human Services Committee, or I think more commonly referred to now as the Shelton Poverty Advisory Team, or SPAT, and their work furthering the efforts of the Poverty Task Force. As you know, we adopted tent encampment regulations. That was a long effort of sort of taking a different approach to the regulations from a strictly regulatory standpoint to more of a how can we implement something that works for Shelton standpoint. And that took a little time, it took a little discussion and a lot of back and forth, but as you know, we got there and that was passed recently. We also are in the process of the interim porta potty project. We have 3 porta potties in place in the vicinity of the downtown. Those are being monitored by the members of the committee. And based on what that tells us will probably help us direct where more permanent facilities should go. They have done some rounds of collecting funds to pay for that project. They're looking for funding for this interim project. There was a submittal to the LTAC for that source of funding. Wasn't the right fit for the particular project. As you're probably aware, there's been a submittal in our current budget process to fund that interim project as well. Another item I should mention about that project is they're finding that the unit that's at the end of the gravel lot here at the Civic Center really isn't getting as much use as the other facilities. They would like to relocate that unit up behind the library, basically at the trailhead there, and monitor use there for a while. There seems to be some anecdotal evidence that might be a site that's more needed than the site down here. So you'll probably see that go away here, and it will be up there, and they'll be monitoring the use from up there for a little bit. There was a discussion at a recent meeting about opportunities for improving the way facilities for people in mental health issues are dealt with. There's some gaps in really county-wide how the service is provided, and they're trying to better understand that and see if there's a role they can play in that process. There's been some discussion at meetings about providing lockers for folks that are trying to move around town, have a backpack, have other things, and not have to carry that stuff around all the time. What options there are for how can that be secured, where should that be located, and so they're studying that problem as well. And as time permits, they've got a number of other things on their plate. They're looking for grant opportunities. They'll be taking a look at fair housing and housing policies and procedures that we have as a city that may be an opportunity to improve on those, as well as eventually establishing a free store. You may recall early in the process there was a dumpster diving ordinance that was passed, and coupled with that was, I think, some management changes as how Treasures operates. And part of the discussion about that management change was seeing if there's a way that some of the items that people are leaving out in the alley or Treasures or some of the other facilities really are having a hard time moving. Can we find a place to make those available for free? And what would that look like? So those are items they're getting to as time allows. I think that concludes my report. If you have any questions.
But for me, other than I have heard that the porta potties is working out real well, they're being respected and maintained, and sounds like a successful program.
Yeah, it sounds like they're self-policing, I guess would be a good way to phrase it. They're not finding a lot of trash, a lot of debris around the sites. I think that's been pretty minimal.
All right. Thank you very much for that report. Next is our Commission Weekly Reports. Commissioner Moore.
Okay. This week, I will be attending a couple of community candidate forums. I will also be attending an after hours at PUD 3 And that is what I have on my calendar this week.
All right, Commissioner Olson?
I have a Mason Transit Authority Board meeting, a Board of Health meeting, and I too will be at the after hours at the PUD this week.
Okay, and on Friday, I will be attending a Sewer Funding Coalition meeting. It's the first meeting since the past election, and this is something that I started a couple of years ago, and we are meeting over in Olympia to discuss our future as a statewide group that addresses sewer funding options for small cities like Shelton. So that concludes our weekly commission reports. Next is a public comment opportunity. If someone would like to speak to us, you just sign in, and if it's about a specific issue, then you can speak to that. But first, Marilyn, did you want to speak now?
I
General
can.
public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, first is Marilyn, and then is Lisa.
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. I know the budget is on all of your minds. I know it's exhausting many of you. I have some specific concerns that I've talked to commissioners about, but I want to speak in general about the philosophy of the budget. I know when April came around and you talked about a new way of dealing with the budget and you were going to involve the commission more, we were at a time where we were actually looking toward a revitalization. We expected higher revenues, and what was proposed sounded like a good idea. The notion that departments keep money that was left over that they could save for spending on bigger projects. I've worked in a university where that was the case, and it helped departments with their long-term planning. But we're not in a situation of revitalization. We're facing cuts, we're facing very tight budget, and I would ask you to think about a couple of things that came along with that conversion. The distinction between one-time funds and ongoing funds doesn't seem to make any sense when monies are really, really tight and almost everything we do is on a year-to-year basis. Anything can be cut at any time. So in a sense, it's all one-time funding. The distinction means that we spend, quote, one-time monies on things that may not be as important or as high on the list as things that in good times would be considered ongoing. And so I would ask you to think about that distinction and how we spend, if there is any one-time money, how we spend that money. The other thing I'd ask you to think about is the notion of entrepreneurial departments. And again, in good times, that can be really, really helpful for long-term planning. But when times are tight, I think the designation of any money as extra, as leftover, means that there are high priority items that could be funded if there were an overall sense of the city's general well-being. And I'm not suggesting that we shift to an, oh, go out and spend it or we'll lose it philosophy. That's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a sense of coming together with what can be saved to apply toward really critical, high-priority items. And so as you go into the final stretches of the budget, I'd ask you to think about these things and make your decisions based on the very tight situation we're in and the good of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that Lisa? Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to comment on the porta potties locations. I've come to discover or seen people waiting for the bus who've wet their pants. So, because the bathroom is not open at the transit terminal, so they get on the bus with soiled pants. So it'd be really nice to have something near there or have the toilets open earlier while people are waiting for their buses. Also, I was hoping that they would decide if they're going to cut disabled or low-income services and what those are going to be and when they're going to decide, so that we can budget and maintain our stability also. My other question was, can we have a stop sign up by Children's Gateway Center going up to Highlander, the road up the hill? Because now they've changed the school buses to let the kids off at the school, up at the Children's Daycare Center, at the private school for the public school, and those children cross the streets going back and forth. So if we can have a stop sign and a crosswalk on both sides of the roads where kids come and go.
What is the corner, the exact location you're talking
Oh, I'm
about?
sorry. It's Highlander and 7th Street, South 7th Street. Because now they have the no parking signs there and people can't park their cars to pick their kids up, or, I don't know, if they're still going to allow that for the trail for people to park other than in between the signs, because I spoke to a gentleman this weekend who was checking the railroad drains, and he said he didn't see them because they're up so high, maybe they could lower them down a little bit. He didn't even notice they were there. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. I see Mr. Goins, you just made a little note of that there. Great, yeah. Just something to think about. Sounds good. Thank you very much for the public comment. We have another opportunity later in the meeting for more. So, moving right along, we are into, it looks like, I'm looking for a consent agenda, but we don't have it. No? That's why I couldn't find it, huh? All right, so we're moving into old business, and so we have something that's going to be presented to us by Mr. Steve Goins, and this will be an action item. So the public comment will be available during this, after Mr. Goins presents to us his proposal.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is related to the pop-up regulations. Those were intended to mainly provide updated regulations for mobile food vendors as well as other ancillary uses that would be on an interim basis. We've discussed this in a couple meetings now, and at the last session we had a public hearing. Generally, there was pretty favorable comments on this proposal. There were two specific items that came out of that discussion requiring the food handlers to provide trash receptacles, trash facilities, and limiting the time which they could operate. The draft ordinance, or the ordinance that's before you now, includes a provision that does limit the hours from operation from 7 a.m. to basically midnight, and it does require that the operators provide trash receptacles that they will manage and remove the trash each day at the end of their sales operation day. So other than that, there was no further changes proposed. I believe that was what we discussed in our last meeting. Our request is to move this forward and have, I think the desire was to move this forward quickly and have a first and final reading of this ordinance.
Okay, as our policy generally is this is a public comment on a proposed action item, so if anyone from the public wants to weigh in on this, now would be your opportunity. If not, I will turn it over to my fellow commissioners for their input on this. So, any input, questions, or comments for Mr. Steve Goins?
No, I see that you got in there the request we had, so I'm good with it.
Looks great. I've heard nothing but good comments about this. I think people are really looking forward to this and glad to see some progress.
I did call Mr. Goins earlier in the day because I've read something in the memo sheet here that we had talked about, and that was concerning the trash, that the vendors would be responsible for that. Mr. Goins said that in the final ordinance that is addressed, and so that concern of mine was met, and so I feel comfortable in moving forward with this at this time. So I would request a motion to approve this ordinance. Motion?
I move that we, you can read it first?
Oh. No? Okay, oh, that's right, we have first and last reading.
That's right.
So we'll do that first. Okay.
Ordinance number 1873-0815, first and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to temporary uses, including food trucks and temporary uses, amending Shelton Municipal Code, chapters 5.04, 5.30, 20.02, and 20.04.
Now I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve ordinance 1873-0815.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ordinance passes. Next, under new business, is we have something that our Public Works Director, Greg Clark, is going to be bringing forward about our Transportation Benefit District.
Yes, Mayor, Commissioners, what this particular resolution is doing is setting the public hearing for this to be heard in a public setting. The issue here is that we have a Transportation Benefit District, but it's an independent body that requires a lot of administration support, separate minutes and all this. The state legislature probably was lobbied by several of the benefit districts to try and incorporate it into their city policy as just an ordinary agenda item. And so they changed the state law this year, allowing cities to absorb the TBD and assume all the TBD's rights, powers, functions, and obligations. So in theory, the independent action required for a TBD would just be part of general government business here at our commission meetings. So this is to set a public hearing to hear pros and cons with regard to that. The meeting we're hoping is going to be Monday, November 2nd. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions, comments?
Have there been any negatives identified by switching over?
I personally have not heard anything to the contrary. Just so you know too, and I meant to mention that we will be putting this in the paper, publishing it. It will also be on our website, notifying the public that this meeting is coming up. The state law requires two publishings of this succession weeks. That's why the hearing's out quite a ways.
Okay.
Is there any kind of a deadline to get this done for any reason?
No, not at all. It's up to us. We could continue with the TBD just the way it is now, but this seems to be making things a little more efficient, and I don't think it changes any of the, because it's our city limits, you know, the boundary of our district is our city limits, and that's what allows this to happen. If it was different, if it incorporated part of the county or something like that, it would be different. Because it's our own entity, we can choose to do this or not.
Yeah, I was just thinking just to avoid any confusion, because it is on the ballot November 3rd. I hope nothing, if you hear of anything, I guess we can pull it back.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I just don't want it to interfere with the ballot measure. If people get a little sideways with it, would be my only concern. But it doesn't seem like there would be.
Just a thought too, is that maybe would be an opportunity having the public hearing the day before the election. People could come ask
Sure.
questions, whatever.
Good point.
As well, so up to you.
No, I think we should go for it.
I have heard from staff that this would be a much smoother and better operation from their end of it, and so if something's a little simpler and easier to do, sometimes it's the best way to go. So I have no question about it. I think it's the right thing to do. So it appears that we have enough information to place this on resolution 1086-1015 on the consent agenda for October 19, 2015. Thank you. Item number 2 is tourist fund applications, and this is going to be presented to us by Vicki Yoke.
Mayor, Commissioners, as you know, we accept tourism grants, applications for the tourism grants each August, and then during the month of September, we meet with the LTAC committee, which is the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and the mayor is the chairperson of that committee, and we have 2 members that are eligible to receive the funding, and we have a couple other members that are owners of the local lodging facilities here in the city. So during that time, we received applications from Shelton Mason County Chamber of Commerce, Christmas Town Kiwanis, Mason County Horse Festival, Mason County Historical Society Car Show, and the Mason County Historical Society Museum Visitor Center. For 2016, there was one additional request, and that was from SPAT. They were looking to see if the tourism dollars could be used for the bathroom facilities that we have located around town, the committee met and discussed the applications. There were a few that had requested additional funding this year, and that was the Mason County Chambers Visitor Center, Mason County Horse Festival, and Mason County Historical Society for either operations or additional advertising and those sorts of things. The committee did ask for, review those applications and asked for additional information from some of the applicants that had submitted requests for additional funding. And we did receive that and then met again in October and went over those applications again. The mayor was absent from the meeting and Commissioner Olson sat in as the mayor pro tem, and that's where they took the vote to make the following recommendations. The Chamber of Commerce, $15,300. Christmas Town Kiwanis, Bluegrass from the Forest event, $7,000. Horse Festival, $7,000. The Car Show from the Historical Society, $1,500. The museum, $10,000. And they felt that the request from the SPAT committee for the restroom proposal didn't quite fit under the tourism criteria, so their recommendation was to not fund that. So at this point, what happens is you can fund all of the request as was recommended, or you can fund nothing for a particular applicant, but you can't make changes to the amount that was recommended by the committee. So that's what's on the table. We're asking for your comments. This actually, if you say this all sounds good, what that does is we then let the finance committee know that these applications have been accepted as recommended, and it goes into the 2016 budget process. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can.
None for me.
That's a good process. Every year we go through this process, and Mr. Dwayne Wilson and Annette McGee have been diligent and dedicated. They discuss everything, talk about everything, and so I felt that, again, this process, we took an extra meeting. I wasn't able to be at the second meeting, but from what I gathered from the first meeting, they are pretty wise in this area, and I have no questions about their recommendation.
And I guess I do, it's like, how long has this particular process been the same?
Well, I think that, when your city reaches a certain population, then it's a requirement by the state that you have a tourism committee. Mm-hmm. And then through the years, it's evolved to where there's much more oversight of the committee into the recommendations. And so they've changed the process considerably over the last 3 years or so. We have a much more thorough process on reporting the outcomes of the tourism events and things, and the grant recipients come in, they give the information, they have to kind of project how many people went to the Horse Festival parade and all those sorts of things. So it's changing over the years, but it's requiring much more oversight of the committees and the city on what's awarded and making sure that it falls within the guidelines that they've given us. So the Department of Commerce, I think it is the one that kind of oversees it, and of course along with the auditor that comes in and will audit whether we're making good use of the monies and in a lawful way.
Okay, so there is an accountability that is required from this money. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone from a different city, and they've gone to a process where the city identifies some specific goals, and so the application is centered on how the applicants will meet those goals. And so it sounds like that isn't something that we've done.
We haven't really done that. I mean, there's different ways, like the events, you know, are you're bringing people into town to stay at the facilities, and they track how, they project how many people actually stayed in the city of Shelton. As far as the organizations that are asking for operating funds, which is the chamber and the museum, they report to us all the time about how many people visited their websites, how many calls they had requesting information about, you know, different activities and things that are local and those sorts of things. So they do their report in that way. And the museum, the same thing. They, how many people are coming to town, how many people are visiting the museum, and those sorts of things. As far as us projecting what we'd like to see money spent on, well, no, we haven't really done that.
Okay. Okay, it's just, it's a process that I haven't really even wondered about that much, other than it seemed to be fairly automatic. And so I just wasn't sure if pretty much if the money was there, that if anyone requested money, they were awarded money. I anticipate that next year there will be some additional requests.
The criteria,
Uh-huh.
yes. I think the county kind of moved away to doing granting of the individual funding, and they've got now an organization that they're sort of the vendor that's going to be managing the money, and they put it out for tourism advertising and different events and those sorts of things. So county's kind of given it, you know, the city could probably make a decision to say, okay, we're going to give the money to the chamber, and they're going to promote all of the tourism activities, you know, for the city of Shelton. Our city hasn't decided to do that.
Okay. Okay.
I will say that, being on the committee for 4 years, that these groups take this money and this mission very seriously. So, and they report quarterly or so with us about their progress. The bluegrass people, you know, the museum, you know, Forest Festival, and that most of them, you know, they take the money and they want to put it back into the community and grow. Their groups are growing, and so, you know, it's for any one of these groups that gets this money, they take it very seriously, and they have to fill out all of the forms, and if they don't fill it out right, they get the phone call. So I feel comfortable with the process, and I know that the people that we're paying the money to take this very seriously.
And we really appreciate their involvement, because for the most part, they're volunteers.
Volunteers.
On all these things, so.
Well, I think I wasn't being critical of the process or the groups that are, I was just, you know, I think we can definitely see the results of how the money is spent. I was just wondering if there were, I don't know, if there would be any benefit into looking at it differently.
And that's a possibility. You know, what is our goal? We do have an ending fund balance. Generally, we're spending about what we're bringing in every year, so we have an ending fund balance, and it's in the 90,000 range. That has to be spent, of course, still to the criteria that's identified by the state. But, you know, so if you had a goal of something that you wanted to see happen with part of that money or such, you know, that would be something that we should look into.
Okay, well, I was considering as well as that during these events, the city has traditionally paid for additional garbage pickup and garbage cleanup and all of that. And so I was wondering if any of those funds could be paid out of this, so that the organizations that are volunteers, that are bringing tourism in, if they could
you know,
receive some additional benefit from this money.
There was additional requests made, and some that were awarded, and to those organizations to pay for some of the utilities.
Okay.
It isn't just for the extra garbage pickups, but it was because there's increase in a lot of different areas. So they did increase it, and so you can use that money for operations.
Okay.
Yes, so for the events, the operations and stuff, so yes, they will be billing, the city will be billing them for the garbage extra or water for the tanks and those sorts of things. And for the log rolling and the log show and stuff like that, where they use the water. So those things will be billed, and then they ask for increased funding to pay for those
Oh, okay.
sorts of things.
Okay,
That's
so
why
this
some of
does kind of offset some
Yes.
of those additional costs
It
that
does.
we're asking
Yes,
the nonprofits to pay.
for the activities, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
that is kind of at the bottom of my question.
Okay, there. Yes, they did increase their awards this year to help offset those costs.
Okay.
All right, so it appears this commission has enough information to concur that the Hotel Motel Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation that we agree with, and that for these tourism grant and enter into the grant awards into the primary 2016 budget. So we can agree with that group.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is under administration.
Do they need to take any action?
No, it's placed on the consent. Well, it just goes into the budget process. Kathy puts it into the budget and it's approved during the final budget adoption.
All right, under administration report, we have a Basin 3 funding update, and that's going to be presented to us by our Public Works Director, Greg Clark.
Mayor, thank you, commissioners. Dave O'Leary requested that we put together just kind of an overview, catch up where we're at on Basin 3. It's obviously been an important project. We've been scouring the state looking for coalition members and others to help the funding efforts. We're partway there with grant funding, so let me just kind of go through this thing real quick here. I did the handout before the meeting here. A little bit of history. Most of the sewer pipes in this north end of the downtown were constructed in the early to mid 1900s. And as sewer pipes age, especially in an area of the flat valley like some of this area is, you get a lot of differential settlement and other things that cause the sewer pipes to start leaking. When they start leaking, in the high groundwater table months, you get water that runs into the pipes, and that gets taken down and has to be pumped to our treatment plant for most cases, and then we have to treat it in our treatment plant, and it costs a lot of money moving the water around. And so it's important that we keep these sanitary sewers as tight as we can. And this particular project, like we did for Basin 5, is an I&I project where we go in and slip line these things and do other things to tighten them up. And so as we basically move this thing forward, we've gone through the design. It's 100% complete, so it's kind of sitting on the shelf. We need to put together some final bid documents at the time we decide to put it out to bid. That'll take somewhere around 30 to 60 days to put that packet together and get it ready to go. We then obviously need to advertise it, put it out to bid for 3 or 4 weeks. We open bids. The lowest successful bidder would be then probably recommended by staff to the commission to award to them. Then a few days goes by, we have a notice to proceed that goes out, and a pre-con meeting, and the construction would begin. So that, from the time we get the green light to put it out, you're probably looking at about 3 months before you can see construction happen, depending on the time of year or two. We may need to wait for good weather if it was in the middle of the winter. But kind of reviewing where the cost on the project was, when we did our sewer comprehensive plan, the original cost estimate of this thing was just a little over $3 million, and that was just definitely low. The consultant at the time didn't consider, I think, all of the elements of the project. We then hired our design consultant, which then started putting the design together. And as we did that, we came, in 13, we came up with a cost estimate more closer to 6.3. And then that was updated to the 90%. It came up to 6.4 with that, the final design information. And then we applied in 15 here, just last month, when we opened bids for Lake Boulevard, we applied the pricing that we got for the bid items to this project, and it went up a little bit more, which is kind of typical for inflation and construction costs. They continue to go up. So that's kind of where we've gone from the $3 million to the $6 million. Grant funding, where we stand right now, the total project cost is $6.644 million bucks. And we did receive a Commerce State Capital Grant this year of $1.5 million, which they take out about $45,000 for their administration costs. So we've got $1,455,000 to apply to the project. Before that, we secured a DOE Centennial Grant in the amount of $1.973 million. And if you add those two together, we basically have $3.4 million of total grant money currently sitting in the queue for this project. The balance of the project's cost is $3.2 million, which would be this DOE loan that is offered to us. The commission approved it, we've signed it, but we haven't broke ground. So until we actually pull the trigger and start spending money, it just is sitting in the queue. But probably the most important thing that we need to communicate today is that given the timing of the grant and the eligibility duration of that particular offer, we probably need to get that project on the street next year. So we need to start thinking about early next spring, if not before, about putting that thing out for bid and starting work on it. I don't think that would stop the ability to continue to look for grant funding, but we're currently, the loan amount would be this $3.2 million right now, which would be for a 2.3% loan for 20 years. Should the project have a little bit of overrun, there's this uncommitted amount now of $1.157 million that is, when they gave us the loan, we didn't know about this Department of State grant that we got this year, so we asked for all of it. And so this now sits in just kind of a slush fund, so to speak. And of course, we don't have to pay anything back that we don't borrow, so it would just be what it is. That's the current status of that. I gave you some attachments here. One is a copy out of our comp plan of that original cost estimate of the 3.1. The second page is our state capital funding request, which, like I said, we turned in this year, and we received $1.5 million towards this project. And then the last 2 pages is actually a new grant application we just turned in to the Economic Development Council to kind of be in a queue should the Mason County have the opportunity to secure some funding. This is now in the queue as one of those projects that would be eligible, and this was the latest that we turned in for that, and it shows on the second page the 3.2 is the needed funding amount for making the project whole. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, that's good news. I mean, we started out at a $1.3 million grant, we got it to 3.4. That's good news. Now, let me ask a question. If the Department of Ecology, which I'm planning to talk to, in their wisdom, decided that we could have maybe one more year before we started this project. I have been in communication with our state legislators, and not this year because it's not a budget year, but next year, they would submit a $2 million request through the same capital budget for the city of Shelton for another $2 million for this project. It's in the Department of Ecology's hands. They've stretched things for us. They've worked with us, but then we worked for them too. I mean, we've literally tried to bring awareness to what these projects, what their effects can be on a small community. So 3.4 is a long cry from 1.3, but another 2 million wouldn't be a bad idea. And just as we got that 1.5, I feel very confident we could get another $2 million. But the timing and working with the Department of Ecology, and it requires effort and doorbelling and things like that. But I would be more than happy to put forward the effort to communicate with the Department of Ecology, show them what we've done, show them where we are, and then see if we can get a little more time, because I believe we could get another 2 million, and that would be real nice. So, is that a possibility?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Money is money.
I don't know the rules associated with, the legislative awards and stuff. I mean, this particular capital grant, I'm not sure what I think
Sure.
it's probably good for 2 years, and then you have to go back to the queue, but,
It's only 20 minutes away.
right.
Been there before.
So what's our drop dead date to lose the funding that's available now?
I believe the way the documents read, and I didn't pull them out today, I probably should have, but it's my understanding we have to have spent the money and completed the project by whatever the date was we signed the agreement in 17. And I think we signed it in the fall. So I think we have actually 16 together with probably half the construction season in 17 to have spent all the money.
So sometime like say summer or fall of 17, it has to be
It has to be
completed.
complete,
So if we don't start before that, we'll lose this funding opportunity,
right? Potentially,
potentially. Unless, like Gary just said, maybe an extension is available or something.
possibly.
Comment.
Yes, Mr. O'Leary.
The dates that you were talking about was, and I caught it from the context, is that it would be available to us for another bite in the odd number year. And so this year we got $1.5 million in 2016.
Yeah.
Next year, they're not going to do a capital
No.
budget, but
No.
in 2017 it would be available.
That would be, if that's what we felt was most important for the citizens of the city, is to get that money and to literally finish Basin 3, which is important. We have to do it, we're under a mandate, you know. But again, the Department of College has been very, very friendly towards us, have been very willing to work with us in these situations. And again, look where we've come from continuing to ask and push the, you know, and so all I know is that we're all working together on this, and obviously, you know, a 80 or 90% grant to a 10% loan is obviously much better than the other.
Just one more thing. When you didn't mean to say what you said, and but the chief looked at me like, yeah. And you, when you make these presentations off the cuff, sometimes you slip in a word that you.
I said wrong.
No,
Oh,
Craig, you said
Craig.
slush fund.
Slush? No, don't got one of those.
When I was
Sorry,
talking-
Craig, just for the record.
We're talking
right
about
up there,
the,
transparent for everybody. And
the remaining SRF funds?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's-
Right.
It's a safety net, so to speak.
There you go.
It's money that we don't think we need to spend, but should the project have some overrun or something, it would be available.
Do we have any estimates of inflation, like how much the project will cost? Like with each year, is there a formula that goes up, or is that at all predictable?
Mike and I were talking, because we've been looking at costs and what they've come in. It seems like construction typically is going up between 4 and 5% a year. I mean, it sometimes can be as high as 6, depending on what inflation happens, but it's running over 3 and probably less than 6, so somewhere in there.
Maybe 10 years ago, we were running at 10, and it had been for quite some time. So the stuff was a lot more expensive. At that time, China was bidding up the price of metal, for instance, and so metal construction was really, really expensive. And concrete was up, and asphalt was up, and all these things. So if it's at 3 or 4%, that's lower than it typically, and it has been historically.
We were actually thinking on Lake Boulevard the PVC pipe, which is an oil-based product, that would maybe be down a little bit in price based on the fact that fuel is down.
Yeah, it's made out of oil. Yeah.
But that wasn't the case, it was actually higher, so.
It's probably old stuff.
Full stop.
When we were talking about this last year and talking about the percentage rate of the Department of Ecology loan that we could get, the 2.3% for 20 years, that was before our mill closed, and obviously prior to Olympic panel closing. I wonder if that will make enough of a difference to our community income that we could qualify for a less percentage rate on our loans. Do you know that?
Possibly, but we've already signed the agreement. So I think
Oh.
we've locked in, but, who's to say they can't unlock it and lock it again? If I remember right, though, our range was somewhere in the bottom of the tier.
We were already getting a hardship.
We was already getting a hardship. To get into that next category would have required a significant change in our median income, and I don't know if we're there yet, but I can look into it.
Okay, and I wonder if they take into consideration, I don't recall it being part of the paperwork that we looked at, but the consideration that the city has lost a lot of our funding because of the mills going away, and then because of the breaks that Sierra Pacific were able to take advantage of for building in a stressed area. Okay. Okay.
Good thoughts.
Those were,
Yeah.
if we can add everything up together, we will be able to
Yeah.
get this done.
Has to be done, so that concludes your update?
That concludes my update. I did mention in that last statement here, Mayor, we are under an agreed order to eventually do this project.
Yeah.
DOE has told us that, you had, I think it was 6 basins, and this is the 4th basin of the 6 that we need to
Major ones, yeah.
to get tightened up. And so, we have, they've given us an interim kind of buy period here. 'Cause
Yeah.
They know we finished the treatment plant, they know our significant debt.
Sure.
For all that stuff, and so they've given us a little reprieve. Also, the treatment plant has, with Basin 5 especially, the amount of flow coming through there under
Saved
heavy
a lot.
storms is a way less. So
Yeah.
it's done a lot of good.
Yeah.
And so there's a little time, I think, that they're not going to push it here, but we do need to do it.
Yeah, we do. And just from their end, from what I communicate with, the city of Shelton is probably one of their most awarded cities. I mean, we have done a lot and we want to finish it, but again, you can kind of only do what you can do, and you might as well just keep asking. And so anyway, yeah, asking you might get. Any other questions concerning Basin 3? Okay. Next is, it looks like turning it over to David Leary, City Administration Report.
Just doing budget project. That's what's been the all-consuming thing. We're trying to close a gap. We met Friday with department heads, just about got everything in that needs to be presented, not only in the general fund, but in the other funds, and we're working on solutions. So none of them are what we would want. And yeah, none of them are what we want. So, but you got to make a budget, so we'll have one for you that's balanced on the when we make our report to you early. So.
All right. Very good. Next is general public comment period. If somebody would like to speak again, then you have to, if you want to speak, you've signed in, so you can come up and speak.
I have a question, I'm not sure if it pertains. Patty Lent, the mayor.
Now, go ahead and tell your name for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry, Lisa Renfro.
Okay.
When Patty Lent was mayor, or commissioner, now she's mayor, she had said that property taxes the percentage off the 100,000 is based upon the maintenance for the future budget. So, that would base on what's needed and what is necessary. So if things aren't on the budget that are exempt, if they can be included in the budget needed and necessary other than cutting, certain things for safety as they were talking about in the video, if they put everything that they have to do that is a project or a repair, and if project and repair is the same word, would it qualify to keep that on the ballot for that levy increase for property tax so that more people putting into it versus cutting people out of it for, like disabled and low income, cutting their services for their discount versus having all over new levy for the taxes, so that everything that is necessary can be included in the new budget. I don't know how you guys do things here, but that was my question.
Okay? Thank you. Okay, any other comment? Seeing none, any administration final touches?
Touches.
No new touches, but I just wanted to touch on my touch, and that is next Monday, I'm going to have my consultant here, Aspect Construction, Carla, and we're going to talk about the agreed order with DOE for our C Street landfill.
Oh,
good.
okay. Very good.
Any others? Station.
Our next meeting will be October 19th at 6 PM in the evening. This meeting is adjourned.